People at Work, The Lifeboat Men, first published in 1971, a Ladybird book. All the lifeboats that help to rescue people from the seas around our coasts belong to the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. 150 years ago, men were still going to sea in wooden sailing ships. When these ships were wrecked by storms or driven onto our rocky shores, many sailors lost their lives. Some of the ships were wrecked within sight of people on the shore, and often these people could not help the sailors because ordinary rowing boats could be overturned by the stormy seas. On September the 7th, 1838, a rescue took place which has become famous in history. A lighthouse keeper named William Darling and his daughter Grace rowed through huge seas in a terrific gale to rescue some people clinging to rocks. Their ship had been wrecked quite a long way from the lighthouse. Grace was only 23 years old and not very strong, but she persuaded her father to let her row with him. It would have been impossible for him to manage a small boat without help. Grace and her father were both awarded gold medals by the Humane Society for their courage. Earlier, a man named Lionel Lucan had tried to build a boat that would neither sink nor turn over. His boat had air spaces and layers of cork built into it to make it very buoyant. Buoyant means able to float on water. He also put an iron keel on the bottom to help the boat stay the right way up. Then William Woodruff claimed that he had an idea for a boat which would always come up the right way if it turned over in the water. His wooden model of it is shown opposite. In 1789, Henry Greathead built a lifeboat, partly based on this model. It also had a cork lining and cases of cork at the bow and stern. During the next 30 years, Greathead and Lucan built many lifeboats. Some of these had sails as well as oars. The boats were paid for by people who wanted to save the lives of shipwrecked sailors. Lloyd's, the ship insurers, paid for a large number of lifeboats. These first lifeboats were manned by the local people of coastal towns and villages. Sir William Hillary, whose portrait you can see opposite, was a crew member of the Douglas lifeboat. He arranged a meeting in London of important people, and in 1824 they formed the National Institution for the Preservation of Life from Shipwreck. The Shipwreck Society, as it was known, later changed its name to the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, often referred to as the RNLI. The RNLI provides and maintains all lifeboats around the coasts of Great Britain and Ireland. There are 5,000 miles of coastline and about 140 lifeboats are stationed around it. The only purpose of the RNLI is to give help and save lives at sea. The crews of the lifeboats are all volunteers. This means that they've offered to man the boats at any time that they are needed. The mechanic is usually the only full-time member of the lifeboat crew. Most lifeboats carry a crew of 7 men. The man in charge of the lifeboat is the coxswain. The coxswain decides which is the best way to carry out the rescue. The lifeboat men wear nylon suits which have been made water and oil-proof. At all times they wear life jackets which will keep them facing upwards if they should fall into the sea. The life jackets have a whistle, a lifeline, a strap to lift the man out of sea, and a lamp which lights up when in water. Where there is a lifeboat, there is a man who looks after the affairs of the lifeboat station. He does not go to sea, but decides, with the coxswain, when the lifeboat should be launched. If they decide to launch the lifeboat, 2 maroons are fired from the lifeboat station. Maroons are rockets which burst into the air. This call-out maroons throw out green stars. The crew of the lifeboat see or hear or are told about the maroons. They leave their work and run to the lifeboat station as quickly as they can. Our country has a coastline that has cliffs as well as flat, sandy beaches. This means that lifeboats have to be launched in different ways from different parts of the coast. At some places, the lifeboat does not need launching as it is always kept afloat. It is moored in a harbour or in the mouth of the river. This is only done when there is enough water all the time to get the boat out to sea. A small boat is used to ferry the crew from the shore to the lifeboat. Where there is a firm beach, the lifeboat is towed on a special carriage. At the back of the carriage are caterpillar tracks instead of wheels. A powerful tractor tows the carriage. The tractor has caterpillar tracks to help it grip as it pulls the boat on the carriage. To launch the boat, the tractor can either pull or push the carriage into the sea. The tractor is waterproof, so it can go in the sea too. When the lifeboat returns, it is floated onto the carriage and towed back to the lighthouse. At a few places where lifeboats are beach launched, tractors cannot be used. Men pulling on ropes drag the lifeboats over skids down the beach to the sea. Skids are large wooden beams that are laid crossways down the beach. After the boat has been dragged over them, the skids are pulled to the front of the boat. They are allowed down again and reused until the boat is launched. This way of launching is very hard work and many willing helpers are needed. The boat must be beached in the same way. Where cliffs or rocks make launching difficult, a slipway is used to carry the boat down to the water. Great care has to be taken in choosing a suitable place for the boathouse and a slipway. The crew must be able to get to the boathouse quickly. The slipway must be fairly sheltered, as the lifeboat is usually launched in very bad weather. Inside the boathouse, which might be quite high above the sea, the lifeboat rests on a gentle slope. It is held by a slip chain at the bow and a slip hook at the stern. When the crew are in the boat, the mechanic starts the engines. While he is doing this, the bow slip chain is taken off and the boat pulls on the stern slip hook. As soon as the engines are running well, the coxswain signals for the hook to be taken off. The boat glides down the slipway, gathering speed all the time. At the foot of the slipway there is always plenty of water, and the boat hits this with a great splash. The mechanic puts the engines into gear and the propellers start pulling the boat away. It is not an easy task to get a lifeboat back up the slipway to the boathouse. The boat has to be taken up stern first to be ready for the next launching. The boat is backed so that the keel fits into the channel in the slipway. and the steel wire rope is fixed to the stern hook. Then the boat is pulled up by a machine called a winch, which winds in the rope. If the weather is too bad to pull up the boat, it is kept in the shelter of a nearby harbour. Some firms have been building lifeboats for more than 100 years. Oak, teak, mahogany and cedar are woods that have been used in the building of lifeboats. Modern lifeboats have wooden or steel hulls. Some are being planned to have hulls of glass-reinforced plastic. When a new wooden boat is being built, a strong wooden frame is built in the boatyard. The frame has layers of planks fixed to it, and this is covered by a cloth soaked in white lead paint to make it waterproof. Another layer of planks is put on top. These are sloped in a different way from the first layer, and this makes the boat very strong. The inside of the hull of the lifeboat is divided into several compartments. These are separated from each other by watertight doors. Some of the compartments are filled and others are lined with either boxes of air or with plastic float blocks. This gives the boat great buoyancy and makes it almost unsinkable, even if damaged. If any of the boats are left open when the boat is at sea, a warning light flashes on the control panel. The twin propellers have guards over them so that they cannot be damaged. Lifeboats are often at sea in the sort of weather that could capsize them. Capsize means turn over. In 1958, a man called Richard Oakley, who worked for the RNLI, designed a new kind of lifeboat. This was a self-righting boat that could right itself in 5 seconds if capsized. A later type, called the Oakley Mark II lifeboats, also right themselves in 5 seconds. When new lifeboats are built, they are given many tests before they are put into service. One of these is a capsizing test to make sure the boats will always right themselves. In the picture, you can see a lifeboat righting itself after a test. There are now 2 sizes of Oakley lifeboats in service with the RNLI. The first Oakley lifeboats are 37 foot long, or 11.277 metres, and light enough to be towed and launched by tractors. They can travel 145 miles with a crew of 7 and carry 35 survivors. In 1963, a larger lifeboat came into service. This is the Oakley Mark II, shown in the illustration, which is 48 foot 6 inches long, 14.783 metres, and can travel 300 miles. The Oakley Mark II has a wheelhouse amidships and can carry more radio and search equipment than the smaller Oakley boat. Some lifeboats, which right themselves, are also built with steel hulls. Another kind of lifeboat is 70 foot long, 21.336 metres, and made of steel. This is the largest lifeboat that is built for the RNLI. It is used from lifeboat stations where there is always deep water. These boats can travel over 700 miles, and there is space on board for the crew to cook, eat and sleep. The 70-footer carries 2 other smaller boats to help with rescue work. One is carried already inflated, and the other can be inflated quickly if needed. In 1963, the RNLI sent some men to the United States to look at a new type of lifeboat. They liked the boat, and they brought one back to try it out in our country. The boat did very well in tests, and some others have been built by British boat builders. The boat has a steel hull with a deck and a wheelhouse made of aluminium. This 40-footer is the fastest lifeboat in the service. The McLachlan boat, shown opposite, is one of the newer types of a very fast, small fiberglass boats that are being tried out at lifeboat stations. They are used for rescue work close inshore. The RNLI uses inflatable inshore rescue boats to help rescue bathers and people cut off by the tide and yachtsmen. The inflatable boats are made of rubberized nylon. Parts of the nylon are an orange colour so that the boat can easily be seen at sea. A powerful outboard motor is used. This gets the lifeboatmen quickly to the people who need help. The boats have two-man crews and can be launched with 2 helpers. Modern lifeboats carry special equipment which helps the crews in their difficult and often dangerous work. Radio telephones keep the lifeboat crews in touch with people on the shore, in other ships and in aircraft. Echo sounders tell the crews how deep the water is, and radar equipment helps them find what they are searching for. Searchlights and parachute flares light up the search area, and deck floodlights make it easier for the crews to do their work on the lifeboats. Oil is carried to spray onto the rough sea to make it smoother. Lifeboatmen often need to get a rope across to a wreck to rescue people. They use pistols which can fire lines about 100 yards. People in danger use these lines to pull across stronger ropes. Anchors are very important to the lifeboat crews. They use them to hold the boat steady. Good first aid equipment is carried as well as suits which quickly warm people who have been in the cold sea. The RNLI has a central store at Boreham Wood near London. Spare parts for the boats and all kinds of equipment are kept at this store. The RNLI often works with the Coast Guards, who often give a warning that a lifeboat may be needed. Sometimes it is easier to rescue people by helicopter than by a lifeboat. The RNLI works well with the Royal Air Force and the Royal Naval Rescue Services. Since the RNLI was founded in 1824, more than 90,000 lives have been saved. Today, more calls are made on the lifeboat service, and there are more than 2,000 launchings a year. Each year, about 1,000 people are saved. This works out at about 19 lives saved every week. The Royal National Lifeboat Institution is not paid for by the government. Most of the people who run the service do so for no payment. The crews of the boats brave the seas to help others and only get paid for the time that they are at sea. In towns all over the country, people get together to help the RNLI. On one day every year, they sell flags to collect money to buy new boats and all the things that lifeboatmen need. When we buy a lifeboat flag, we help to save lives at sea.